The boys went on the road for the first time in 2024 to the land of beer and cheese, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the birthplace of Drake in Toronto. Unfortunately, they had a losing road trip going 2-4. Not great. What went wrong? Let's talk about it in this episode of Raise the Trident.
Perfect. Right field, bye-bye! A grand slam! Giddy up, baby! That is way gone! That's what I'm talking about! Julio!
Hello, my name is Jake, and welcome back to Raise the Trident, your weekly show covering the Seattle Mariners. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can subscribe. It would help me out a lot. You can like and comment down below. I would love to hear from you. And if you're on Apple and Spotify, I would appreciate a 5-star review as well. Helps me out a lot. So, if you're listening to audio only, more power to you. I appreciate it. But yeah, we had our first road trip of the series or of the year, going to Milwaukee to start out with a 3-game stretch and a 3-game stretch in Toronto. Didn't go very well. It was a pretty poor road trip, to say the least. I think I can talk for pretty much everyone that it was a lot of very frustrating baseball to watch. It was not fun for most of the time. But we're going to go over the road trip a little bit later. We're going to talk a bit more about what is going on with the Mariners. What's the problem? Is it still too early? We're going to kind of go back into that debate again, even though I covered a little bit last week. Go into the next homestand, which is going to be hosting the Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds. And then we have our last couple segments that are pretty fun. We have a new one that's going to be Prospect Recap with Ben Ranieri from C-Level Substack. So excited to show you guys that. But first, let's go over the road trip, starting with Milwaukee. I wasn't really sure what my hopes were for this first series, mainly because Milwaukee has kind of been a hot team to start out 2024. They started, I believe they were going into the series like 5-1, I want to say. One of them was a sweep of the New York Mets in the first series of the season. The Mets have not been a great team, so it's like, how much can you really look into that? And then I think they split a 2-game series with the Minnesota Twins. So coming into it, I was feeling like we had a pretty good chance to win the series. The first game was not going to be easy. We were going up against Freddie Peralta, who is going to be a potential National League Cy Young candidate. Knew that game was going to be difficult. So if we could edge it out, I was going to feel good for the rest of the series. And we got pretty damn close. But unfortunately, frustratingly close. We had Logan Gilbert up on the mound. He had a really great first start of the season, so we were hoping that we could keep that going against their ace and Freddie Peralta. Logan Gilbert had an okay outing. Unfortunately, did end up giving up 4 earned runs in just under 6 innings pitched. So we were down pretty kind of a decent amount going into the late innings. However, we were able to get a bit of a rally in the top of the 9th and get it tied 5-5 going into the bottom of the 9th. And that's when, unfortunately, Andres Munoz came in to get what you thought was going to be just getting into extra innings. He lost the strike zone completely. It was a total meltdown. He threw like 2 strikes the whole inning, ended up walking the bases loaded, and walked in the winning run. A walk-off walk. You hate to see it. Nice little pun from me there. Vibes are pretty low, not gonna lie. I think we were all very disappointed with the first homestand, especially losing the series against the Guardians, a series that, in my opinion, we should have won at least. And then we get this walk-off walk, 4 straight walks from Andres Munoz, who is supposed to be our best reliever going right now, especially with Matt Brash and Gregory Santos on the IL. He lets us down pretty massively in that game. So not very fun. We end up losing that one 6-5, the final. And then we go into the next day. We had what I thought was a pretty favorable matchup in Bryce Miller versus, I believe it was DL Hall. DL Hall, I think it was like his 3rd or 4th start in the major leagues period. I know Bryce hasn't had that many more, but he's at this point a bit more established, and he had a great game. Bryce Miller kind of really has only been 2 high points in this whole road trip, maybe 3, and Bryce Miller was one of them. He had a absolutely great outing. He went 7 innings pitched, only gave up 3 hits, no runs. and we got 7 strikeouts for Bryce Miller. And then we ended up scoring 5 runs. Not bad. It felt like our offense was starting to come back a bit, especially after such a cold start in our first homestand. Back-to-back games we were scoring 5 runs, so I was starting to feel a lot better. Julio Rodriguez was starting to hit the ball pretty well. He had an RBI single in the 3rd inning, and Mitch Garver also got a good RBI single as well in the 3rd. Jorge Polanco finally showed a bit of his power that we know is there. Had a really deep home run to right center field at Miller. Is it Miller Park? I don't know what it's called, where the Brewers play, but that's besides the point. 418 feet, 106.6 miles per hour on the exit velocity. That's what we like to see there. And overall, pretty good game. At the end of the day, we won 5-3. I will take any W any way we get it, unless someone gets like super hurt during the game. Otherwise, a win is a win in my book there. In really promising stuff from Bryce Miller, he pitched great. So that was really cool to see. Going into our 3rd game, the rubber match of the series, we had Emerson Hancock up versus Colin Rea. I actually did not watch this game. I was asleep the whole time. Thank God I did not, because we ended up losing 12-4. Pretty rough. Emerson Hancock had a really bad start going off of his good start. The first one of the season he had was pretty decent. Ended up going 3.1 innings pitched, giving up 11 hits and 8 earned runs. Got 6 Ks, which is kind of cool and good for him. But, giving up 8 earned runs, it really doesn't matter how many Ks you rack up. That is not good. You took your team out of it pretty early on. Like I said, he only went 3.1 innings pitched, so that means they had 8 runs on the board before the 4th inning. At that point, you're pretty much out of the game for just about 99% of the games you play. It's very rare that you're going to come back from an 8-run lead. So not a whole lot to write home about with that game. We did score 4 runs, which is ultimately kind of nice. Dominic Canzone had another home run. That was his 2nd of the year at the time, went 428 feet. I mean, we know the ball jumps off the bat when he gets a hold of one. But yeah, we ended up losing the series to the Milwaukee Brewers. So, at the end of the day, you're disappointed. You're not happy with that. You wish it was different. And not really good vibes going into Toronto, losing by that much, 12-4. Losing by 8 runs going into Toronto, who, when you're playing Toronto, you have to know that you are going to be competing for a playoff spot against the Blue Jays at some point at the end of the year. So you want to win as many games as you can. You want to get that tiebreaker. So I was really hoping that we could get a series W and have that, off to a good start. It's one thing to lose to the Brewers. It's one thing to lose to the Guardians. You're not going to be competing against either of those teams for a playoff spot in September. The Blue Jays, you are. And I thought we had it, a pretty favorable pitching matchup. We had Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert going to be on the mound, our top 3. And we were not going to be seeing Kevin Gausman. However, we were going to be seeing Jose Barrios has been having a good year so far. Chris Bassett is always tough. And Yusei Kikuchi absolutely dominated us last year. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but you have to hope that they can edge it out. They didn't. Just gonna go out there. They did not end up winning this series. We ended up losing the series. We did not get swept, which is important, and we will get to the last game in a little bit here. But starting out, Jose Barrios versus Luis Castillo. Another 3rd in the row. Not even really 3rd of the row, because Luis Castillo had a pretty rough ending of September. And this is his 3rd start. All the starts so far this year have not been great, mediocre at best. And this one was no different. 5 innings pitched, 9 hits, 4 earned runs, and 6 Ks. In the 5th inning, you've given up 4 runs. I'm not saying that's an insurmountable lead by any means. It's just like, Luis, dude, like we need you to have one of those 8 inning no earned run starts so soon. And it's been a really interesting case with Luis Castillo, and I'll get into it a little bit later. But disappointing is the main word. I mean, you can really use disappointing for the main word for most of our games so far this year. Um, but yeah, once again, just not the start that you wanted from who's supposed to be your ace. And then on the other side of the the playing field, Jose Barrios had a great game. 6.2 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, 6 Ks. Like I don't even need 10 Ks or double digit Ks from you, Luis. I need like 0, 1, 2 earned runs and like 6, 7 innings. Like that's what I really like. I don't care if you even get 10 hits off of them, just the runs, man. It's got to stop. Um, and unfortunately, I mean, our offense, it was looking kind of fine in the Brewers series. It wasn't phenomenal, but it was kind of, if we had a bit of better pitching in Milwaukee, you're looking at probably taking that series. Our offense kind of went off a cliff. We only scored 2 runs in the first game of the series, and that was off of a homer from J.P. Crawford in the eighth and a solo home run from Cal Raleigh in the ninth. Cal Raleigh is the new Prime Minister of Canada. We already know that. He is the daddy of the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll get into that a little bit further later. Um, so that was annoying, right? Like we're only getting, consistently in the Milwaukee series, getting 4 or 5 runs each game, somewhat respectable there, to 2 runs. It's just not what you want to see at all. Getting into the second game, once again, we only scored 3 runs this time, so I guess we got a little bit better. But George Kirby was on the mound for us. Not a good game from George Kirby. I mean, granted, it was a lot better than his start against the Guardians, where he gave up 8 runs. But he ended up only pitching 4 innings, 8 hits off of him, 5 earned runs, only 3 Ks. Like, I mean, the one thing with George that I can give him in this start is that his first few innings were pretty good. And then he had some errors, or we had some errors in this game that really ended up costing us. We ended up had 2 errors in total. And all of them like mattered, and it was really annoying because those guys either would end up scoring, and it's just prolonging innings for a guy who is still working on stuff clearly. And once again, just disappointing is the easiest way to put it. And we ended up losing that game 5-3. Chris Bassett had a pretty good game against us. 6.2 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 8 Ks. Yeah, our strikeout woes were coming back again. Double-digit strikeouts, had 10 in total in that game. So at that point, you're not even fighting for winning the series. You just don't want to get swept. Thankfully, they ended up fighting back in game 3 and taking it 6-1. Probably one of their best wins of the year. Probably, I would argue, their best win of the year. A lot of stuff was going really good for them. Starting with Logan Gilbert. He had a pretty rough outing in his second start against Milwaukee. Or no, it wasn't Milwaukee. Was it the Guardians? I don't remember who. And he came back and he had an absolutely phenomenal outing. 7.2 innings pitched. He almost got to that 8 mark. 5 hits, 1 earned run, 8 Ks. That's what you love to see. I said the thing, haha, funny. And unfortunately, when he got taken out of the game, our offense had a had a terrible game for the first basically 8 innings. Okay, we had 1 run by the time Logan came out. He ended up giving up 1 home run to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the 7th to tie the game. Annoying. It was like the one mistake pitch that Logan had the whole game. He hung, I think it was like a splitter or something, right in the middle of the plate. Vladimir Guerrero hit it 459 feet. That one is not coming back. It had a family. How dare you? So Logan pitches this gem, and when he leaves, it's a tie game. And he actually had two runners on when he left. Andres Munoz took over, and thankfully, Andres Munoz got out of the jam, which meant though that regardless of the game outcome, Logan Gilbert is going to get the no decision, which is frustrating. He deserved to have the W next to his name after this one. Kikuchi had a really good game. Old Mariners or former Mariner, Yusei Kikuchi, 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 9 Ks. We ended up striking out 15 times this game. How fun. Um, Dude, we were just flailing for the first like 8 innings. You could just tell. JP Crawford had another home run, which is nice to see. I hope that he can get to, I think what he had like 19 last year. Hopefully he can get into that 15 to 20 range. I would really like to see that this year. Um, but you could just tell like the bats were really pressing. They were trying to, I don't know, maybe hit that dinger, maybe they were really going like whiffing at Yusei's like lower slider in the lower part of the plate, and any of his breaking pitches that were low, they were just flailing at. It was not good. Julio had a really rough game, maybe one of the worst games I've seen from him. Honestly, he got a golden sombrero, ended up striking out 4 times, all 4 times he came to the plate. However, we ended up coming back in the 10th. So there's some reason where the 10th inning is just when we can get runs. I guess, guys, I hate to break it to you, we can score runs in the other 9 innings of the game. We don't have to wait until the 10th. Thankfully, our pitching saved us the 1 run deficit, or not deficit, the 1 run 1-1 draw going into the 10th. The Manfred man at the time was going to be Mitch Garver, ended up being Luke Raley. It didn't matter because first pitch, the Prime Minister of Canada, Cal Raleigh, Mr. Big Dumper himself, put one into the bullpen in right field. Um, I mean, what can you say? Cal, it goes unconscious when he plays the Blue Jays, and it's amazing. It's great. We'll talk about it more in a minute. So Cal Raleigh ends up scoring 2. At that point, then we have a 2-run lead in the 10th, and we ended up getting Dominic Canzone to walk, and JP Crawford walked. They ended up taking out their pitcher Tim Meza, put in Mitch White. So we have 2 runners on. At that point, only 1 out. Julio Rodriguez had his 4th K. Not great. And then Ty France, Mr. New Dad himself. Congratulations to Ty and his wife on their most recent addition to their family. Came back for this Toronto series, and it wasn't the best series. However, in this 10th, he got a nice double. Ended up scoring Dominic Canzone, so he got a 1-run RBI double, and then Mitch Haniger followed it up with a single that ended up scoring 2 runs. So by the end of the 10th inning, or at least the top of the 10th, we had a 5-run lead. You feel pretty good about that. We bring in Ryan Stanek. He's throwing absolute gas, ends up getting 2 strikeouts and a line out after walking Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to seal the deal. So that's going to be it for the road trip. Ended up taking 1 game from Milwaukee and 1 game from Toronto apiece, and then losing 2 apiece as well. Um, you know, Overall, very disappointing homestand. Not a whole lot to write home about. Really, the big 3 things that you can even really say is Bryce Miller pitched really well in Milwaukee. That's good to see. Logan Gilbert absolutely shoved in game 3 against Toronto, and Cal Raleigh is very clearly still like the owner of Canada. And we were able to get that game in the 10th inning. So very cool. But that leads into even though we ended up on a high note, we lost the series. We lost the road trip. That's not good. And at this point, when we are entering today, our record, I believe, is 5-8. We have the off day today, going into a homestand that is not going to be easy. It's going to be really scrappy homestand. So you would hope that they could have won at least one of these series to make it like a 6-7 record, whatever. And what really is going on with the Mariners? And it's really difficult to say. Um, Actually, I'm going to back up really quick because we need to talk about Cal Raleigh one more time. So, you know, Mr. Schneider, the manager of the Blue Jays, made it very clear last year that Cal Raleigh is really easy to pitch to, and that if you just execute your pitches, then, you'll be fine. Well, Cal Raleigh, in his career against the Toronto Blue Jays, regular season and playoffs, has a 295 batting average, 18 hits, 10 homers, 19 RBIs, 16 runs scored, and that's only in 17 games, fella. I mean, you're clearly not executing your pitches, and that's a problem on you, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Tomato Man. So hopefully you can figure that out at some point. Okay, now we'll go into what is going on with the Mariners. Um, with this homestand, it's been really frustrating because there's not really one specific thing that has been the issue at all. Because, like, one game, it'll be the offense is just totally non existent, absolutely horrible, to be frank. And then in a game where the offense is doing okay, our starting pitching fails us, or sometimes our relievers fail us, like Andres Munoz in Milwaukee. He made up for it in game two, but that was rough walking four batters. Or it's the defense, or it's a mixture of both. Sometimes it's the defense and the pitching, especially in like those George Kirby starts. It's so frustrating because he's such a pitch to contact pitcher because he just doesn't have a whole lot of whiff in his game. He's in the zone all the time. And that means, guys, put it in play. Our defense, it exposes our defense for being lackluster, which it is. And we kind of know that. But it's frustrating because George Kirby is a guy where it's like if he had a solid defense behind him, he's going to have better starts. I'm not putting it all on the defense for George Kirby's woes. At the end of the day, he is not getting it done. He needs to figure out how to get the whiffs. He needs to figure out how to be able to pitch out of the side of the zone without it being a problem and for it actually helping his game. He hasn't been able to do that yet, and that's frustrating. However, it really does expose our defense for what it is. We had two errors in his game when he pitched in Toronto, and that both errors occurred while George was on the mound, from what I remember. That sucks. And then in games like the first game of Toronto, it's just our offense is terrible. And even in game three, up until the 10th inning, our offense like sucked. It just straight up sucked. We had a JP Crawford home run to put us at 1-0, and that was it. We struck out 15 times in a game. I mean, do you remember Lance Lynn last year striking us out 16 times? I get like half of the roster's different, but like what is going, like there's something up in our hitting department. And I'm not putting it all on our hitting department because it's our players too, man. Like it is very clear they're pressing, they are trying to do way too much, and they're making really bad swing decisions at this point, especially and most notably Julio today. He wasn't even close. Like that was the problem. And so that's like what's wrong with the Mariners. It's like not even one thing. It's all the different factors of the game will find different times to work, and when they work, something else has to fail, and it can ruin the game and end up making us lose. It's very frustrating. And so that goes into kind of the next big topic that I want to talk about, which is the is it still too early stuff. And I'm also going to shoehorn in a bit of the conversations I've seen around Twitter about the coaching staff and if there needs to be some turnover there. First thing I'm going to say, okay, we have a 5-8 record, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, we're like 15 games into the season. Okay. So no, you don't fire the manager, Scott Servais, 15 games into the season. You just don't do that. I get that like he's been here for 8 or so years now, and you can feel whatever type of way you want about Scott. Okay. The last 2 years, like it's been undeniable. He's had winning records. He made the postseason once. He almost made it last year. He lost it by one game. And we're 15 games into this season. Like, Why, like, how are we having talks about that now? You can have talks about whether things need to improve or if some of it is a part of the woes. That's fine. And to a degree, it definitely has to be. Like, there has to be a bit of blame on the coaching. Sure. That's true for all levels when there's underperformance. But the big difference between underperformance at like the collegiate level or high school level versus the major league level is that at the major league level, these dudes are paid millions of dollars, more money than most of us will ever see in our lifetime. And they are tasked with knowing how to take care of their body and knowing what work they need to put in. All of them have their own pre-game routines, post-game routines, certain workouts they do. Like, so yeah, you can put some of it on the coaching and the game planning or whatever you want. But I still feel like a majority of the blame for underperformance goes to the players, like with Julio, right? At the end of the day, like at the end of the season, he's probably still going to put MVP up numbers up. And, so I don't think I'm not trying to rag on Julio. However, he's the poster boy of the team. And he has been pretty bad this year so far, this first 15 games. And the coaches can tell him whatever as far as how to maybe make some tweaks to his swing, make some mindset changes. It's up to him to implement those things. It's up to him to know his body and know maybe this is what I could do too. So, you know, like I get why people are ready to go be like, Scott, relieve him of his duties. I get the frustration, but we have to be logical here. It is 15 games into the season. This goes back into the is it too early conversation. And I mean, I still have the same take as I did last week, where it's never too early to uh, have conversations about underperformance. It's never too early to be disappointed in the record and the game results themselves. But it's absolutely too early to like be, you know, writing off this team that like, oh, see, this team sucks. Like they have no shot. I mean, ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? And that like is literally what the most disappointing part of this whole first 15 games has been. I think we all can, acknowledge how much talent is on this team. Whether you're one of those people who is upset they didn't spend more in the offseason, so therefore it's like, well, no, they actually got shitty players. I mean, come on, let's be real here. They got talent. We have Julio, JP has a lot of talent. Most of our rotation has a lot of talent. Mitch Garver has shown that he can be a phenomenal elite hitter. Jorge Polanco has shown the same thing before. Even Mitch Haniger has. So, like, we know that they have the talent to be winning most of their games, if not all of them. Like, they have the potential to win every single game that they go in and play. It's that simple. You can't say that about every team. You can't say that about the Oakland A's. You can't say that about the Miami Marlins. But I truly believe that this team has the talent where you can put them up against any team, even the Dodgers, and they have the potential to win. I'm not saying, if they face the Dodgers in a 3-game series, I'm going to put money on them winning the series. I'm probably not. However, like the potential is there. They could do what like the Arizona Diamondbacks did against the Dodgers. They have, and in my opinion, they have potentially more talent than like the Arizona Diamondbacks do. And sorry, Aaron, if you're listening to this, I'm not saying the Diamondbacks are a bad team. I'm just simply saying that they have the talent. It's there, and it's a shame and it's disappointing that for a lot of guys it has been pretty bad so far this year. But you have to give the players some grace and some patience to figure it out. And, when I've said that before about giving the players patience, some people were not happy with that because they don't have the patience with this organization as a whole. And I'm not saying you have to have patience with the organization, with the front office, with the owners, whatever. I mean, I know I don't have patience with the owners. I have a little bit of patience with the front office, not a whole lot, but you have to be real here. They have constraints. And with the players specifically, you have to give them patience, right? I was seeing tweets about Luis Urias as a dud like 2 games into the season. I mean, come on, guys. Like let's get back down to earth a little bit, okay? I'm not trying to grandstand here. Like I'm just trying to be logical. And I'm not telling you how to fan either. You can fan however you want. If you want to be on the more pessimistic side of this team, I get it. I absolutely get it. But I urge you, and what I guess I'm trying to promote is to be a bit more on the optimistic side because it's a bit more enjoyable that way, first off. And two, like logically, they have the talent to be a great team in the MLB. Plain and simple. Okay, now for that, we're going to go into the next homestand and the breakdown of that a little bit. We are going to be hosting both the Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds at T-Mobile Park. Starting with the Chicago Cubs, I mean they're a good team, plain and simple. They have a 7-5 record right now. They're going to be tough. I'm hoping we can get the series W out of it. I feel like we have the possibility with some of the potential pitching matchups right now, but who knows? So, and just kind of give an overview of their team right now. Some of their hot starters: Cody Bellinger is off to a slow start. He's batting 191, 291, 631, but he's a lefty, so he's a very easy long ball threat for T-Mobile. Nico Horner is also off to a pretty slow start as well. However, they have several guys who are having great starts. Christopher Morel, their third baseman, first baseman Michael Busch, who they got from the Los Angeles Dodgers this winter, and Seiya Suzuki are all having pretty good starts to their season. And that's going to be rough because, they're impact players. They are going to change the game for sure. As far as pitching matchups go, game one is going to be Bryce Miller versus Jordan Wicks. If Bryce can have a similar start than he did in Milwaukee, which I actually believe he can, because his first start against Cleveland, he got a little bit unlucky with the long ball, or actually, sorry, the Red Sox. He got a little bit unlucky with the long ball. If you take, the Tyler O'Neill home run away, like it's only 3 runs, like, and in Milwaukee, he looked great. And his splitter is still looking absolutely nasty. So I have a good feeling for him against the Chicago Cubs. I think he's going to have a pretty solid outing for him. So hopefully our offense can wake up, because our offense is going to need to be pretty good this series for us to win it. And Jordan Wicks, I don't know a whole lot about him, as I think he's kind of more of a slot starter for the most part, so I don't know a whole lot. But yeah, I'm feeling good about game one. Game two is going to be Emerson Hancock versus Shota Imanaga, who they got from Japan this winter. I would put this down as a loss in the column, like pretty quickly here. Emerson Hancock looked okay in his first start, kind of looked really bad in Milwaukee. So I am not getting my hopes up for game two against Imanaga. Imanaga has looked absolutely nasty. He has a 0 ERA so far this year, and he is racking up the Ks. And when he goes up against the Mariners, I don't think that's going to change, more likely than not. I'm willing to be surprised. That would be pretty nice. And then game three is Luis Castillo versus a to be determined. We're not really sure who's going to be pitching that game. It probably would have been Justin Steele, but he's on the injured list right now, so we're not going to see him, which is a bit of a sigh of relief because Justin Steele's a great pitcher. He was a Cy Young candidate last year for the National League, so that it'll be nice to not see him. So I'm not sure who we're going to see. Luis, buddy, you need to have a okay game. I'm really, and I'm going to keep my hopes up because I do think Luis can do it. He needs to have a good game against Chicago, plain and simple. We need a solid start from him because at that point, like, you need to start having questions because, like I said with him earlier, it's not just this year because last late September, he was also having a really rough time. So this is a problem, and it could be a problem if it persists. So we'll see on that. So as far as the Chicago Cubs series, I mean, if I was going to put my money on it, I guess I would probably put a series W just due to the starting pitching is a bit more on our side here. So we'll see. We'll hope, and that's also assuming Luis Castillo has a good bounce back outing. And then going into the Cincinnati Reds series, they're currently 6-6 right now as I'm recording this. This is Wednesday night, so those records could change tomorrow. We'll see. Cincinnati's a really interesting team. They're kind of like the Kansas City Royals for me in the sense that, when they're not on, they are a pretty easy team to put away. When they're hot, they are one of probably the toughest teams to beat, just plain and simple. Some of the notable hot starters, Elly De La Cruz and Spencer Steer, are having phenomenal starts to the year. They both have over 1,000 OPS. Not great, especially Elly De La Cruz. I mean, I know a lot of people think he's a bit overrated. I'm looking at you, Aaron, and a lot of people think he has holes in his game, and I'm not denying that. However, plain and simple, his speed is a problem. His power can be a problem. He can be an impact player. So we'll see how that goes. As far as notable slow starts, Jeimer Candelario and Christian Encarnacion Strand are not having great starts to the year. So yeah, there's that. As far as pitching goes, it's harder to see that far in the future because I don't really know. As far as our rotation, it should be George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller. I feel good about Logan Gilbert. I feel good about Bryce Miller. I hope George can bounce back and have a good start against Cincinnati. They're going to be kind of a team, I feel like, that's going to give him more problems again. Contact kind of oriented team. So we'll see on that. I don't know who's going to be pitching for sure with Cincinnati. It's going to be a mix of Frankie Montas, Hunter Green. I'm not sure who the third would be. Montas is on to a good start. Montas, I don't know how to say it. He's a 2.16 ERA right now. Hunter Green is mainly a fastball flamethrower. Kind of makes me feel hopefully good because clearly we have a lot of issues with the breaking stuff. So if he's mainly be throwing us fastballs, I do have some faith that we can catch up to him and cause some damage. So we'll see. But that's going to be it. So Chicago Cubs, Cincinnati Reds coming into T-Mobile. I would like to have you comment below how you think we're going to do in this next homestand. I'm really just need a winning homestand. Like that's what I want. That's what I need here. So yeah. And with George Kirby going against Cincinnati, I'm hoping he has a good bounce back start because right now, I think I'm projected to see him April 27th against the Diamondbacks. I'll be up in T-Mobile. That's going to be really fun. My first game in person of the year. So hopefully he can be back into form because, I don't want to see a rough George Kirby start because he scares me. So, but that's pretty much all the things I can think of as far as Mariners wise that I can talk about at this point. So we're going to get into our last ending segments of the podcast. The first one is a new segment that's going to be reoccurring with Ben Ranieri of the C-Level Substack. If you don't know who Ben is, he's a good writer. You can go to the C-Level Substack, check out some of his stuff. You can get subscriptions for his stuff as well. I've interviewed him before on this channel, so you can check it out on one of my You Love to See a Podcast episodes. And I really appreciate him wanting to do this prospect roundup. I don't feel like I know our prospects well. I don't know our minor leagues very well. So I thought it would be cool to have someone to kind of give an update every week as far as how that's going. And I thought of Ben, and he agreed to do it. I'm very appreciative of him. So we're going to get right into it with Prospect Recap with Ben Ranieri.
All right, welcome into this weekly prospect recap here. My name is Ben Ranieri. I am here to give you a prospect recap throughout all the levels of the Mariners system. And I'm going to start today in Modesto, where they have a very fun roster, a very prospect-studded lineup led by Colt Emerson. Emerson's hitting .308. Obviously, Modesto, and Everett are very early in their seasons, but Colt Emerson hitting 308 with 2 bombs already and a 769 slugging percentage, a bomb in his first game of the year. Athletic first round center fielder from last year, Johnny Farmelo, already also has 2 homers. And last year's 4th rounder and my number 8 prospect, Aiden Smith, is batting 286, 333 with a 714 slug, and also had a 2-homer game just a few nights ago. Another interesting highlight here, Lazaro Montes. Some of you may know him as Baby Jordan. Big dude, 19 years old, is hitting 417 with an over 500 on base and has only struck out 1 time, which is a huge deal for Lazaro Montes. So yeah, moving on to Everett. Not a ton here. That roster is a little bit bare, at least of the impact prospects that you would think of, but Ben Williamson is leading the charge offensively for that squad. 375, 412, 500 so far. And Axel Sanchez is also hitting 357 to start the year with 2 stolen bases. So it'd be nice to see Axel Sanchez come around a little bit after a really good 2022. Not great 2023. That'd be great to see him get back on track. Moving on to Arkansas here. Starter Logan Evans threw 4 scoreless. And I guess it should be noted I'm recording this here on Tuesday afternoon. So Logan Evans will probably start here in the next couple of days. But he threw 4 scoreless. He did walk 3 batters and hit a batter. But I think in terms of the stuff and everything that I've heard, Logan Evans looks really good. Just got to limit the free passes. But it's going to be really nice to see him kind of continue to progress here after a really aggressive assignment for him to Arkansas. Cole Young hitting 364 with a 417 on base, and actually so is Tyler Locklear. They have the exact same stat line so far. So both of those guys tearing it up. It's really nice to see. Harry Ford's off to a little bit of a slow start. He is hitless in his first 12 at-bats. Again, not that big of a deal here. It's really, really early. I don't expect that to be an issue for Harry Ford moving forward. He didn't have many plate appearances at AA last year, so it's going to be a little bit of a learning experience. It's not anything to panic about, but it's probably going to take him a little bit. This is the best level of pitching that he's ever caught, and it's the best level of hitting that he's ever hit against. So sometimes that just takes a little while to adjust to, especially for a catcher. Moving on to Tacoma, Jonathan Clase has been the standout offensive performer so far, 286, 375 so far for his average and on base. A lot of guys off to slow starts in Tacoma so far. They're kind of just struggling, but the pitching staff has been really, really good. Levi Stout is a guy I wanted to highlight in terms of a prospect. They have a lot of interesting relievers. Carlos Vargas has been throwing the ball well. Jordan Holloway, but not a ton of guys that are, I would say, true prospects. But Levi Stout is still a prospect, and he delivered 8 solid innings of 3.24 ERA ball so far. So that could be huge if the Mariners are able to get something out of Levi Stout, especially as a starter. If he can be a little depth piece to this roster, and if he can potentially be something different than Emerson Hancock, even at the big league level this year, that could be very interesting. So overall, a lot to like from the system. There are some guys that are struggling, Ty Pete, Harry Ford, but there's a lot of season left. Most of these affiliates are 3 to 10 games into their season. Not a ton to write home about so far. There are some really positive things, especially those bats down in Modesto, and some of those higher level bats like Cole Young and Tyler Locklear tearing it up already. But thank you guys for joining me here today on this prospect recap. My name is Ben Ranieri. You can check out my site at ben@clevelbr.com. Comprehensive analysis on Mariners prospects and the Big League Club. So go check it out.
Thank you, Ben, for doing the first prospect recap of the Raise the Trident series here. Really insightful stuff. And if you can, and you have a chance to go see some of our guys in the minor leagues, whether that's in Modesto, in Everett, in Tacoma, go do it. It's really good. Or in Arkansas too. I forgot about them. And I really love the Modesto Nuts roster. They have a lot of our top prospects there right now. So if you're in Modesto, go catch a game. You probably won't regret it. Once again, if you haven't checked out Ben's stuff before, go to his Substack. The link will be down below in the description as well. So really appreciate him doing that. Next segment we're going to get into is episode 2 of the Raise the Trident weekly update type stuff with our favorite guys, Joe and Colton from Mariner Mojo.
Welcome back to the Rise the Trident. Welcome back to the Raise the Trident podcast. Fuck! Back to the Raise the Trident podcast. I'm Colton and that is Joe, and we are here from Mariner Mojo to give you guys your weekly update.
Today, after you're hearing this, I think, or whenever, Jackson Holliday's made his debut, guys. Another guy that's younger than both of us, which is really sad. It's getting really sad how many guys that are younger than us are playing in the MLB, but Jackson Holliday's making his debut, the number 1 prospect in baseball, batting 9th, playing second base for the Baltimore Orioles. I honestly thought maybe he'd go to short and then Henderson would slide to third, but Colton, I'm not in that clubhouse. I'm not making those decisions, so it's okay if I'm allowed to, have a little bit of a wrong opinion. But Colton, what do you make of Jackson Holliday making his debut?
I think it's interesting, Joe, that 3 guys that have made their debuts in 2024, Jackson Holliday, Jackson Chourio, and Jackson Merrill. What was going on in the early 2000s? Why is everybody naming their kid Jackson?
We need 2 more to make the Jackson 5. And
True.
We'll have this new center of phenom prospects in the MLB. We can dub them the Jackson 5. Trademarked, LLC, copyright. Don't take that from us. The Miami Marlins, Colton, big news for the Marlins. Won a game. A singular game out of 12 so far. They're 1-11. You were calling them the worst team in baseball last weekly update. Colton, would you still say they're the worst team in baseball?
As Mariners fans, after what we've had to watch recently, surprisingly, yes, I will still call the Miami Marlins the worst team in baseball. Something even worse than the Marlins is all the injuries that are still happening to the pitchers. We're seeing more and more guys go down with elbow injuries, including Framber Valdez, who just was scratched from his start the other day with issues with his elbow. Joe, what do you make of these injuries?
Well, I'm a little bit more peeved than anybody else, and I'm going to stand on my pedestal here. I drafted Spencer Strider in the first round of the Mariners Creator League, and now my best pitcher is on the shelf likely for the entire year, but that didn't stop me from taking an absolute dump on Jake in week 1. Jake, if you don't show it on the screen right now, I get that I was banned from this show for bragging about it on Twitter, but I'm still here, baby. I'm still here rocking the vest with my guy Colton, who's going to take you down in week 2, by the way. I'm not flexing because I'll feel emasculated. But the Mariners Creator League's been a lot of fun. I am very sad about Spencer Strider. It's bad, dude. I don't know if it's the uptick in velocity, if it's chasing the amount of horizontal movement, because I've seen there was a doctor that went on Foul Territory, talking about the horizontal movement chase that's plaguing a lot of guys. He's a guy that examined Matt Brash for the Mariners, and it's it's bad. It's really worrisome. I liked what Justin Verlander said. He had an interview segment after one of his starts or maybe before his start where he's talking about just the differences in philosophy. And he was very, very well spoken and articulated. I expect nothing less out of such a wise and, mature man like Justin Verlander.
I mean, personally, I hate Justin Verlander.
Because he took Kate Upton from you?
He took Kate Upton from me.
Naturally,
yeah. But yeah, I think that he's right. A lot of what's going on, and what did he say? What did the doctor call it? Designer pitches or something like that?
I think so.
As what guys are throwing. And I mean, maybe there's something to that. Obviously, uptick in velocity over the years and whatnot as well. But I look at what's happening around the league, and I'm just worried, Joe. I am scared of something like this happening to the Mariners. Knock on wood, because we really don't need that. Obviously, Brian Wu was out with his elbow inflammation. I want to take it back real quick to the Mariners Creator League because, you're going down, Jake. It's not even close. Look at the scoreboard. The Mariners just won their second game of the road trip before coming back home to Seattle to face the Chicago Cubbies. Big game there in the 10th inning for Cal Raleigh, Mitch Haniger, and Ty France.
Your guy, Ty France.
My guy specifically, Ty France. We did see Daniel Vogelbach all right, getting at bat, and he walked. So that last game of the series was a big one for me.
Yeah, you really you got to take home all the flowers, I'd say, in the final game. You get a dub, you get a bogey signing, everything you could have asked for in a baseball game, you got in the final game against Toronto. Hopefully the Mariners are going to take those good vibes back home against them, not against them, with them. Whoa, against the Chicago Cubs. Apple TV broadcast, which is, maybe a W for some people, an L for others as well. But Colton, if you end up at that game, you're going to probably see some homers because it's Apple TV and the balls are always juiced. That's, I think, enough from us for the weekly update. And back to you, Jake.
Yeah, that was a really good transition there. Yeah.
What?
That was good.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna regret asking them to do the weekly update. Okay, listen, it's fake news that Joe beat me last week. It's AI generated, and if you even go to the website, which I totally don't have linked in my link tree, it's AI generated that I lost to him, and I'm going to beat Colton. It's not even so. Those guns though. But that's going to be it for this episode of Race the Trident. I appreciate you stopping by and listening. Once again, if you're on the YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it very much. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, leave a 5-star review. It helps me out a lot. I'd love to know your thoughts about how the Mariners have been playing recently. I'm sure it would be pretty spicy if you put that in the comments, so I'd love to hear from you. We're going to end it out, as always, with our weekly weather report. It's going to be for the Friday through Tuesday in Seattle, since that's where we'll be playing. I'm sure the retractable roof is probably not going to be on, as you're about to see. We'll end it with that. Bye.